Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Roanak Baviskar with us today. He's co-founder and CEO at Trainee YC Summer 2023 company. He's building high-performance GPUs infra for your AI team in SF/Fremont, California. I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico. We're going to talk about GPUs, AI, and the landscape of things, YC in the middle of the convo, and everything that's interesting to you.
Yeah.
Podfire.com presents this one here. Podfire is my podcasting company. If you want to start, scale a podcast, go to podfire.com. It's also presented to you by Qualia Mind. If you want to optimize your mind, a supplement for the brain, helps with memory, focus, and drive, you can go to neurohacker.com/CEO wisdom. Ronak, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah. Well, great to meet you, Charles, and thank you for having me here. Um, where do I start? So I was studying math and CS at UC Santa Cruz a couple years ago, and my first role out was working as an ML engineer at a unicorn startup here in SF. And it was kind of like a crazy shift, right? Going from working all around in academia and these really small, like you get like one or two GPUs, and in academia, if you get results to run once, you're good, right? But as you move into the industry and have to work with like production grade AI models, things really change. And so you're stuck with like a whole new set of problems that you just had never considered in college. And yeah, it was quite the transition.
Right. First question here that got me curious. What do you think academia can learn from the startup world, and vice versa? What do you think the startup world can learn from academia?
Um, so one thing that I say is like, and I've talked about this with friends on multiple occasions, that we're all like, I think a lot of people I know were very well suited to doing academia work, but ended up going to startups for a simple reason. And it's that in academia, a lot of your kind of worth is judged by where you went to school, who you worked under, and that's what's going to lead you to get citations and kind of grow your kind of the quality of papers that you get put out. But in a startup, people don't ask you where you're from or what you did before this. They just know that if the product you're building is really valuable, then they're going to use it. And so that's one thing that I really wish like the academia world would take to startups more or take from startups more. But in terms of what startups can learn from academia, I think it's they were doing well on this until like, the whole open AI, closed AI stuff. It's just that academia, there's a very good um, kind of community of people sharing ideas and constantly ensuring that everyone gets access to like the top tier of what's being researched right now. But in the startup world, as kind of after OpenAI kind of stopped open sourcing it, there's just a huge trend of no more training code is being released, even with these open source models. So it's becoming harder and harder to work with these like top tier AI models as a startup compared to before in research. Like, yeah, everyone would be very open about it.
Right. And this weekend I was revisiting Poor Charlie's Almanac, which is Charlie Munger's book, and he constantly praises academia in the business. Well, I think just like one basic mental model is the science behind academia, the scientific rigor behind testing stuff and coming up with scientific results and trying to scale those. A lot of people in business, they just go by the hip, and I'm certainly
Yeah.
guilty of that. And yeah, that
Oh
usually doesn't
man.
scale much.
Yeah, that whole idea of kind of how we can standardize benchmarking and understanding results is obviously a huge problem in LLMs, and academia is working really hard on it. But as we've seen with certain large tech companies, model releases like the Gemini one, for example, like in the corporate world, these kinds of benchmarks are not as standardized. So it's tough to like ensure that you're getting the best quality out of these models.
Yeah, and even before AI, another book that I've been reading was I think was The Man Who Cracked the Market. Jim Simmons, basically the Renaissance guy. And even before AI, this guy was using computer to log in trades, and they still didn't understand why the algorithms would choose some um, trades. And I think it is fundamental for humans to understand the why behind things. Else, we're pretty much going to lose track and think we're going to be rendered obsolete by AI, and most importantly, AGI that should be coming in the next 5 years.
Oh yeah. I mean, in statistics, like especially in Bayesian probability, like there's a concept of the background information that you need to like introduce when you're trying to understand what the um kind of posterior function would look like. And so one of the interesting things there is that if you don't have explainability over your model, the features that it could be picking up on could be something completely different from what you intended to. And so it could just be learning something much simpler than what you want. And because it correlates well, you could think that that is like a perfectly working model. When in reality, like a lot of the times they just find like little hacks in what you're asking it to do to get like good looking results, you know?
Right. Now, talking about your background, YC saw something into you, right? Like, I think they are academia friendly. They love recruiting geniuses as part of their cohorts. Must have been like a pretty big adaptation, but what did they see into you, and what new mental models did you had to adopt to be part of the YC 2023 summer cohort and being a YC startup founder?
Yeah, yeah, no, great question. So, yeah, one of the super interesting things about me and my co-founder in particular is that we actually applied to YC without an idea. We had basically left most of the application blank, and we just in our video were like, we really don't like our jobs, but we're good at what we do, and we want to work for ourselves now, was like the core what we tried to communicate in that video. And I mean, they gave us an interview, so it must have hit some of the right notes. But I think one of the main pieces about why I think we got in was a lot of because we worked really closely with optimizing and really squeezing every drop of performance out of our GPUs for our AI models. And even in the ways that we kind of explained our day-to-day to them, they could tell that we were like really obsessed with this problem. And so I think that base obsession really just like it showed what in the way that we discussed talked about every like kind of company and what their solution is and why none of these would work for what we wanted to do at our job. And so we'd end up having to build out a ton of custom little tools ourselves, me and my co-founder. And so I think it was, yeah, it was that core obsession with just getting the most speed and efficiency out of our GPUs that they really liked.
And you met your co-founder at Hive, it seems. Nothing against Hive, right? But like
Oh no, yeah.
corporations, generally speaking, yeah, I think definitely hampered human beings' potential. When did you realize that you really wanted to work for yourself and launch something of your own?
Well, I think it's a thing that happens to a lot of like kind of tech workers in particular, where you build out like a plot or a product like nearly by yourself, and then you learn what the revenue numbers are on that product, and you see your own salary, and you're like, like this doesn't really line up. But I think the other piece was really that there were so many times when me and my co-founder knew of a solution, like an open source solution that we could use to improve our efficiency on our own. And we were just always blocked by like some higher up in management or something like that that would essentially prevent us from implementing what we wanted. Like just simple network file systems to be able to access our data across each GPUs, we weren't allowed to set up. Even so, we ended up having to waste like hours every time we wanted to launch a model training, just moving the data over and sharding it correctly. So yeah, there were just a lot of these kind of pieces where we felt that if we weren't blocked by upper management, we really could have been able to push a lot more quality models out there. And at that point, we were just like, yeah, we should really consider working for ourselves.
But then you went into it and you realized building a company was incredibly hard.
Oh yeah. We certainly had no idea what we were getting ourselves into, but that's part of the magic, I think.
Right. How did YC help mentor you in the right path?
Oh my God. Yeah, they were like invaluable, I think, in every step of the way. So first of all, just like I think really in my YC interview, we essentially got to the first tool that we ended up releasing because the way that our group partner, her name is Diana, she's amazing. The way she would essentially push us to really figure out what the real question we should be asking is, right? Because a lot of the times, especially as a founder, there's like so many emotions involved and things like that that really prevent you from answering the question to the best of your extent. Like you know the real answer, but you don't want to hear that answer, right? So it was a lot of that just pushing us, and we would joke about it. Me and my co-founder now have like an internal Diana that will always like push us in that direction whenever we're kind of stuck at a point like that. But yeah, so first piece was that. Second piece was certainly that in the way that they have so many resources and like the networks set up makes it like the energy and just the willingness to help from anybody was like amazing. And so I think like if we just started this on our own, we would not have gotten even like a tenth of the way because the community and of all the other founders that really just want to help each other out and want to see everyone succeed was like a really big piece as well.
What's the problem with GPUs and scale nowadays? Is there still a shortage of GPUs, one? And is NVIDIA fast enough to provide like really high quality GPUs? And can it be a hardware problem that can be tackled through software?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, about the GPU shortage, yeah, I don't know too much, like as in like I really don't think we're in that big of a GPU shortage right now. Like most of like for example, we work with DigitalOcean Paperspace and they're getting huge shipments from Dell of like H100 GPUs and most cloud providers are able to get them from Dell at this point. So and even on Google Cloud, for example, we get pretty consistent on-demand availability for a lot of the top tier GPU machines. So I wouldn't say that the shortage is the real issue, but there are kind of two core issues that exist right now that we're working to solve in our platform. First of which is really the issues of scale. So what happens at scale with these GPUs is you essentially you can't train a model on just one GPU anymore. The models became too big a couple of years ago. And so what's required now is some level of distributed systems, right? And the main thing that is a problem there is that not all GPUs are set up. You generally have to pay a significant premium above it to get the high bandwidth and networking that NVIDIA has. So this is something like InfiniBand or ROCE. And the thing with these technologies is they're very expensive and using them correctly is difficult and also one of the most important things to being able to train efficiently. Because the way I like to think about it is like let's say you have 10 GPUs, you split your model or your data into 10 different parts. And then at every step of the way, all of your GPUs need to talk to each other and be like, oh, this is what I got, this is what you got, this is how it goes together. Because all of the information can't fit on a single GPU anymore. So that communication bottleneck when we started this about a year ago was already a huge problem. And now with models like Llama 405B, it's becoming more and more of a difficulty. But the second piece is really in the hardware reliability of these NVIDIA GPUs. So through a lot of the work we've done with different research companies as well as cloud providers, we've seen that the hardware fault rates, even when you set them up perfectly, completely according to NVIDIA specifications, is extremely high when you run them hot. So for example, like yeah, in the latest Llama 3 paper, they mentioned that when they trained their 405B variant of Llama 3, it took something like, I think it was around 2 months of training that it took, and they had to manually restart it once every 3 hours was essentially how it or averaged at once every 3 hours. So like that's insane, right? That when you're trying to just do a simple or not a simple model training, but you're just using these GPUs as intended, yet they still will have some sort of failure, like extremely consistently. And so that's like that along with the networking makes working with GPUs at scale like very difficult today.
Right. And it seems that Trainee provides a dashboard to observe the health of my GPUs. Will it also be able to send commands to the GPUs? Let's say that they're burning way too high. Like, can it have an algorithm as well to lower the outputs so that the stuff doesn't crash? Like, is that in the roadmap?
Yeah, so right now we're working on kind of preventative measures, but we don't have any good preventative measures out yet. But what we do have is when you submit jobs to the GPU cluster using Trainee's platform, it's an elastic scheduler. So it's if, for example, you launch an AI workload on 20 machines, if one of those machines sends an error code, we can actually pull out what the error is, remove that machine from like the active pool, and then resume your training essentially on the rest of the healthy ones. And then the other good piece is that then we can, now that we know what the error is, we could send that directly to your cloud provider. So you don't even have to think about like, oh no, my GPU broke, what do I do? We know exactly what the cloud provider needs to see to be able to bring that error to the next level. Actually, because one interesting thing there is that with a lot of the customers we worked with, when something would break, all they would tell their cloud provider is that, hey, this worked last week and it's not working today, right? When you send that to your cloud provider, they're not under like any specific obligation to take a look and fix it immediately because they're like most of the time they think that it's something on your end that you messed up. But when we actually extract the specific log that says this component has failed and this is the failure case of it, then that immediately puts the pressure on your cloud provider to get that resolved like as quickly as they can.
Roger that. As the CEO this year, well, you've recently raised 500K in pre-seed. What are your priorities? Are you in customer acquisition mode or hyper focus on the product still?
Yeah, no, so we're definitely shifting towards customer acquisition mode now. So we spent about the last 6 months working with a few early customers, really nailing down how we can solve these problems as best we can. And we have a solid functional platform right now for people to get onto. So at this point, my main focus has really become just trying to get more of these people that are on large scale GPU clusters to adopt our platform.
And what's your master plan with that company? What's your long-term vision, granted that, yeah, AI is moving so fast?
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of really interesting ways we can take this. One of the first ones is that, so right now, we're focused on single cluster. So that means assuming you just have a one big GPU cluster on AWS, we kind of can help you interface with that. But one of the big pieces that we are working towards right now is actually multi-cluster environments where let's say you have like 8 machines from Google, 8 machines from Oracle, and 8 from AWS. We can help you work with them so that it feels like they're just 8 machines from the same person, right? So that will really help with the reliability concerns and just ensuring that like if one cloud provider has a major outage, you're still okay because half of maybe like a third of your GPUs are down, but you still have a good enough amount to work with. The other piece that we're working on right now is multi-tenancy. So multi-tenancy is essentially where, let's say there are like 5 different startups that all want to go in together on one GPU cluster. we can manage that for them and essentially give it so that we have a scheduler, we can have like workload queues. So everyone from this team can kind of, because these GPUs are really expensive for like a seed stage company, but this way, like 4 or 5 seed stage companies that all need to access one GPU cluster can essentially share resources.
Right. And your business model, is it SaaS or is it paper algorithm called API?
So right now it's SaaS, yeah. So what we do for the most part in like current deployments is wherever your GPUs are on whichever cloud or bare metal, we will set up our infrastructure on top of these GPUs.
Right. Your views on AGI, do you believe like Ray Kurzweil that it'll happen before 2029?
Um, I I always like hesitate on that because people define AGI so differently. If it's just like an LLM that has the capabilities of doing like any of the things via like a chat interface that a human can do, I do believe that we'll get there. But if we go into like further like discussions of like what is consciousness and all of these meta things, that I have really no idea. Because at the end of the day, like having worked with language models like BERT way before like GPT-2, like these things to me are still just statistical models. And so that whole like I think that magic that exists to a lot of the people that were introduced to it after ChatGPT came out is just like a little lost on me because the we'd already drawn seen what was behind the curtain a while ago.
Yeah, it seems to me in many regards that just using ChatGPT or Claude, it already feels like an AGI, even if back in the scenes it's not built like a formal AGI. Or I guess we can compare it with a human brain that is constantly learning and growing. Maybe Ray Kurzweil definition is more like a godlike thing. And ironically, I don't think there would be much humans that would build that one. For example, if I ask something to ChatGPT, I think it's restrained by many human models and restrictions. ChatGPT cannot say this. ChatGPT cannot do that because it's not ethical. It's not legal, for example. But yeah, you could think of like an AI. You'd ask it, I don't know, like add 10 years to my lifespan, right? And it would scrape all sorts of data and it would know exactly like what's your biological age, and it would suggest exactly what you would need to live longer or make me a million. And it would deploy a bunch of AI agents to go and do that money for you ethically, of course. What do you think about these definitions?
Yeah, no, honestly, because we are like so far off, I almost hesitate to think about it too much because like as with most of the things I've worked with in the past, as I like extrapolate too far, the accuracy really dwindles. And so yeah, I think that like that capability of like an agent to being able to deploy multiple other agents to all achieve like a single task and follow some sort of logic. I think that is coming. But yeah, honestly, what I'm the most excited for are like the desktop agents and like the mobile agents that are on the way that are essentially gonna allow you to like work much more efficiently by accessing information that you need like really quickly and things like that.
You think privacy can be a barrier to that? Because me, I don't mind these AI taking my data if it is to serve me, but most humans do. So what barrier would privacy impose to that challenge of serving us better?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, as a privacy conscious person, something like that being run by like a large company is certainly very concerning. But I would believe that given the capabilities of models, like as they get better and better, we should be able to have like a self-hosted available version. Like the way I see it, that would be really cool is that everyone at home just has like some sort of GPU enabled machine or even on Apple Silicon, and that's just like a home server that is only accessible via like the people that live in that house. And so it becomes like a way that none of the data will ever touch the cloud. It'll just all stay on that physical machine that's located in your home. And I see solutions like that as like something I would really want in the future.
Right. Seems the blockchain technology might have something to do with that one. Merging that with AI can make it potentially cool because, yeah, we've seen like rewind.ai and this like device that you keep on you. And damn, do I don't trust this dancer okay guy with my data. Yeah, like these conquer the world type of people, like yeah, I think there is an aspect to that one. What is your feel also with AI and robotics? We're seeing more and more companies pop nowadays. Do you feel that would have a considerable impact in your own company? Would you also like monitor GPUs inside robots pretty soon?
Oh man. Yeah, honestly, the one thing about, well, I'm not sure if robots would be doing kind of a lot of computation on like physically on the edge rather than having a lot of it go on the cloud. And the main reason for that is robot data is most of the time essentially like taking video data as well as sensor data. And this is extremely complex and heavyweight data to process. And so in general, you do need like more complicated data pipelines and models to be able to process that kind of stuff. So it's but what would be really cool in my opinion is just the main thing of being able to have like these large scale cloud systems that work with these robotics kind of machines that would then be able to like queue up their workloads and all manage or essentially access the GPU cluster through us. I think that would be a really cool potential for it.
Ronak, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing value. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, best place would be either on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/RonakB, or on our company website, trainee.ai.